is a lovely good morning. You're watching Millennium TV. So happy and so glad to be back on your screen this Tuesday. Why am I thinking it's Wednesday? This Tuesday morning. It's good to also know that you're tuned in on the other side of the screen, our dear viewer. Thank you so much for always being part of the Millennium TV family. We're live on your top set recorders on channel 95 and on our Facebook page. It is Millennium TV Zambia. You are welcome to the Business Day. My name is Lovisa Chilufia. I am your host, and this morning on the Business Day we'll be talking about the importance of a political economy, and Mr. Kelvin Chisanga is joining me via call to just discuss the importance of a political economy, of course, especially that Zambia is headed towards an election on August 13th, 2026, and of course this is a campaign period. We want to know how this period also is important and what effects and impact it has on Zambia's economy. Mr. Kelvin Sanga is my guest, joining me via call. Mr. Sanga, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Lovisa.
How are you doing this morning, Mr. Sanga?
I'm fantastic. I don't know how you are doing as well.
I'm all right. Thank you so much for asking. It is good to have you on the program this morning, and just to be getting into this discussion with you. I'm very excited. Mr. Tsanga, let us quickly kick off our conversation, of course, by talking about firstly the period that we're in. Of course, it's a campaign period, it's an election year. We're, I think, 2 months ahead, 2 months away from the general election on August 13th, and of course we can't discuss politics without discussing Zambia's economy and as well, and what this period generally means for the economy at large. But let us get into that and what this campaign period and political period means for Zambia's economy.
Okay, so this period is a crucial time for obviously the political players on the ground to ensure that they work out their manifestos, they work out a number of key policies. They also want to come up with some core ideas of how they can intersect their political system to the economic system as well. So it's something that is very important because it brings that convergence of governance, law, and of course political behavior in terms of how they want to reshape this economic setup. Obviously, we understand that we are basically intersecting in between the political interest that is high at this particular point. Obviously, also we need to look at how best can we work out a model that can be more predictable in terms of how this country needs to be governed from that perspective.
All right. You put up a write-up this today, Mr. Sanga, talking about the importance of a political economy. I think we can get into discussing the details of a political economy and what exactly it means.
Okay, so it basically just deals with the governance patterns and also how to, balance up with the economic needs, especially when we know that Zambia has got a lot of resources. The baseline in terms of this factor is that we need to look at the key parameters that are required for political governance as well as state administration.
Right.
So we are at a point where we need to reshape the system of trying to influence investors' confidence in our atmosphere regarding the way we are doing our policy direction and also how we are anchoring the macroeconomic stabilities. So it's also from the background where we need to see how our sectors are responding to our political ideologies that we are putting in place. Be it on the tax formula, be it also on the broader economic patterns in relation to civil servant behavioral patterns, and even much more the aspect of governance structure that need to be cultivated from there. Then in terms of national development priorities, how are we aligning vis-a-vis with the balance aspect of political interest? So it's whole lot of factors light in place, and also even how we go about safeguarding ongoing reforms that need to activate Zambia to that height in terms of economic, drive.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yes.
You spoke about political interests must be there for balance with broader national priorities to avoid instability, uncertainty, and economic disruptions. Are you able to elaborate?
Okay, so when the political interest overriding, the national development priorities, they can basically bring about economic instability or economic uncertainty. In the midst of where we are, look, we are coming from a position where the economy was overeating because we had a high appetite for debt contraction. We are not even caring for macroeconomic conditions. So if our political system basically just overboard, where governance is not safeguarded, it becomes a bit of difficult situation for us to put up a number of things in perspective. So strong governance requires that we need to look into ensuring transparency, accountability, fiscal discipline, and also we need to look at policy continuation even in the midst of what we face as politicking. Politics can actually be able to erode the key economic fundamentals, because you see sometimes we prioritize even the good policies that are being put in place. So it's a time even when we should be able now to look at political agenda to be more inclined on national prosperities aspect. That actually be able to even give more public trust and ensuring that there is even peaceful resolve to some of the aspects that we see, and it also brings about even the stability in the electoral conduct and many other aspects. So it's important to look at that from that perspective.
Let's talk about policy consistency, Mr. Tsanga, and how in this period government can ensure that there is policy consistency and just fiscal discipline.
Okay, so when you look at the political economy of business, investment, and much more with any other related to that aspect, it requires that you need to have some sense of predictable environment, and of course the investors will be able to cultivate some interest when they see that there is stability in the policy framework. So policy consistency is an important aspect that you be able to reshape the country. Maybe a typical and practical example here is that Zambia had about from 2008 2008 we had a mining policy regime which kept on changing for almost like 10 times. Of course, 10 times in 15 years, changing the mining policy regime made Zambia now to start now going slightly behind Congo in terms of continental command for copper production. If you look at the output that copper is Congo is doing in terms of the overall aggregate number, it's even way beyond what Zambia is able to do. But Zambia used to be the topmost in terms of production in copper across the continent. But because we kept changing the policies, the consistency was not there, and that's one reason why we seem now to be dragging behind the silent war in regards to the mining production and its output. So now the bottom line is that if we've got politics that are coming to continuously changing from time to time, it does not bring that national interest in terms of trying to work on key macroeconomic variables and objectives. Meaning we'll still be keeping ourselves back, still at the back. Meaning even when it comes to budget deficit, those are things that will be able to be breeding as negative elements on the budget, because we've not been able to, put things in straight line. Just like maybe a typical example of a human nature. If I know that maybe I don't know what I can give as a dearest example in the case, but what I meant is if I know that this person has been consistent, I would love to work with that person and I'll be more loyal. I will even invest in that person. But if I don't see the person being stable, it becomes difficult for me to invest in that person because I don't know how the next day that person will be able to wake up. If he wakes up on the left or right, it becomes difficult for you to trust such a one. So if it's the same thing with the country, if the country has got policy consistent, which basically guarantees long-term investment pattern, that will be able to now to sustain even growth. Even when you look at the diversification that we're speaking on export, validation that we're speaking in the local market, and much more with many other, factors that we should be able to count, I think that can actually be able to work out. And it also brings about a continuous engagement that should be able to be predictable, even when it comes to tax and many other patterns of finance or public resource.
All right. Speaking about investments, Mr. Sanga, I know that this is a very crucial period. And of course, I think the past years, Zambia has attracted a lot of investment. What impact does, a political period like this one have on Zambia's investment window?
Okay, so the beginning point is that the investors can be on wait and seek caution because the campaign activeness of some sort may bring a different distortion altogether. And again, it's important to mention to say that Zambia's democratic reputation has made a very good substantial impact across the region, even much more to the continent bloc, meaning the maturity that we have seen in democratic tenets of Zambia has given birth to some good leadership transition process which we have witnessed so far. So sustaining this macroeconomic stability during the electoral cycle may tend to be a key fundamental factor to protect what we have done so far in the recent past. Mind you, I mentioned of the overheating factor that we have actually been able to see, especially when we are the unquestionable dirty complex. So with the aspect of recent economic recovery, which we have made in some gains, need to be emphasized with that attitude of being responsible within this period. Because we need the political players to be more mindful on what they say, what they speak.
So economic performance in this particular year has shown
otherwise
some
start now reversing some of the gains that we have so far made.
What do you think, this political period, or rather the role that the political will plays in tackling unemployment and poverty?
Okay, so this is the more important aspect to actually even settle on, to say the political interest should be bordering on the trying to sustain the gains, as I mentioned, on the macroeconomic factors.
Right.
But much more, we need now to drive more synergy and policy effort into validation, which is the next step. Meaning Zambia's next step now should be more focused on production-oriented policy agenda, which should be able to make sure that we also cultivate good interest for SMEs, where they should be able to enterprise. And the other aspect also is to look at how can we work with the key emerging factors on the economic structure, like issues of 24-hour economy, making sure that we have some safety measures that can actually be able to be put in place, working on key agendas like road infrastructure and many others. Much to this also, I think we need also to cultivate export policy flexibility, so that whatever we are producing, especially when we are looking at getting more non-traditional export into the basket, to make sure that Zambia does not just depend on copper as a traditional export or commodity. And then we need to take advantage of the China zero tariff that has been put in place to ensure that even when we are looking at agriculture products that we are offloading, we need to utilize this land to the fullest capacity. Then the other aspect is to look at the grain banks that Zambia need now to cultivate for these emerging market, especially at a point when we have Middle East war, which still lingering with some effects here and there. We can still, we can do a food basket right in this region to offload in the Middle East, to offload in the region where there are a bit of disturbances of some sort. So it's an opportunity for Zambia to look at that as a bigger component.
All right.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of the lessons, Mr. Sanga, that Zambia can learn from other countries with successful political economies, especially how we can just handle a period like this one that we're getting into, or that we're already into, and even just handling the effects of, the aftermath of the elections.
Okay, so we can learn lessons from countries like Ghana and Botswana, which of course have done quite a number of good aspects in terms of political stability, because my belief is that political stability drives economic confidence. So countries like Ghana and Botswana, they have shown that predictable political transition, which they also respect certain institutions that did help to also sustain that aspect of investor confidence. And even in the midst of election, we have seen that current stability has been the key focal point, which also brings about stability in governance system as well. Then obviously we have also seen that when we have weak institutions like electoral bodies and many others, they can also bring about a difficult situation, because obviously what we can see is the issue to face capital flight for those that are interplaying to the market where they feel that they're not safe. They can basically buy dollars and offload from the region. Offload into the region. Then we can also see the currency depreciation that can take place if we do not do the better way of electoral handling. And much to this also, if we have disputed the elections, we can have a delayed investment decision that can actually be able to bring a different and twisted situation also. So a number of things. So policy continuation is also a critical component that we should be able to look at as well. Because you see, the moment we destabilize, we are not saying we should do, we are basically endorsing anyone here, but we need to be more sensitive, more responsible leaders to look into the aspect of Zambia. Even when we are doing politics, I think it should not be an issue where we should be attacking a persona of some sort. We should look at Zambia as a bigger component, as a broader aspect of focus compared to what we see sometimes where somebody narrows down to individuals and all that.
Yes. As we go into the election period, also, Mr. Sanga, what sectors do you think Zambia can focus on, or rather prioritize, to ensure economic growth and economic stability?
Okay, so as I mentioned, we need now to look at validation as a key component of focus in most of the key sectors of the economy, be it the mining sector, agriculture. I think tourism, we need to do validation in manufacturing as well, where we are basically doing semi-products and offloading in the regional market. We need to fully establish our own brands so that the brands can go with the national initiative brand system, which can also complement with a tourism appeal. We need to look at a way we can also work with the transport system. Zambia is just right in the center of 8 African countries. We can become a transition point for some of the critical products going from South Africa going to DRC, from Angola going to Tanzania. We can create that system where we also start having, that strong link across the region, which should be able to put Zambia right in the center of production, the center of commerce and trade. So it's important to look at all those factors. And much to this also, we need also to look at strong fortitude of commitment toward the, capital formation for SME, because our SME are not basically getting enough resource to rubricate their, activities. So it's important to look from that sense as well.
What is lubricate?
You know, the issue of oiling the economy requires that you basically have to, put up something that can make things easier. So the reason why I mentioned of lubricating, it's where it's like a metal has got lust. When you put some oil, it starts now having its own life back. So that's what I meant by making sure that the capital is injected into the SME. That makes them come back to life. And capital is a lifeblood for business activities.
All right. I wanted to ask about the tourism sector, Mr. Sanga. In this critical period, how does the tourism sector thrive, and how do we ensure that it keeps operating to its maximum capacity? Because, I mean, if the country is going to be busy during the campaign period and we're going to be busy with elections, how does the tourism sector then thrive?
This is where the key aspect happens, because even the election itself or the campaign period should be an aspect of tourism fortitude, to make sure that people come to visit and understand the democratic process that Zambia is going through. Already some people with governance, democratic and electoral principles, they are visiting Zambia to see how this scenario is happening. So it's an important aspect that we need to safeguard with the peaceful conduct, especially when we know that we are actively involved in campaigning. And even when we see the pockets of violence and all that, I think it's important for the defense wind or defense system to detect some of those things and highlight the best way they can act, able to set examples to some perpetrators.
All right, so we seem to have lost Mrs. Sanga there. Allow us to just take a very short break. We'll be right back.
And the hands that will shape tomorrow. Konkola Copper Mines, safely mining copper for Zambia. Beneath Zambia's soil lies more than metal. It holds a promise rising like the morning sun, a future forged by the strength of its people. KCM mines copper for the world. Yet our greatest treasure is here at home. We invest in knowledge. We invest in health. We invest in water, land, and the hands that will shape tomorrow. Konkola Copper Mines, safely mining copper for Zambia. Beneath Zambia's soil lies more than metal. It holds a promise rising like the morning sun, a future forged by the strength of its people.
You're still watching the Business Day on Millennium TV, and for those that are just joining us, you're welcome to the discussion. You can catch us on your top set decoders on channel 95 and our Facebook page. It is Millennium TV Zambia. Mr. Kelvin Sanga, an economist, is joining me via call this morning to discuss the importance of a political economy. Mr. Sanga, you were trying to stress out a point before I cut you short. That we're speaking about tourism.
Okay, so I was saying tourism is important aspect in this election, because obviously this gives an opportunity to strengthen our governance perception, meaning we are trying now to bring forth that national unity. Because you see, tourism is not just about the economic pillars. It's about also displaying our national unity as a sovereignty country, because obviously from that, with the disciplined political conduct and strong institution, we should be able to send a strong message even to the tourists to say we are a peaceful country. Even in the midst of election, we are able to accommodate different political ideas.
Right. But let us also speak about the cost of living in Zambia. Of course, much as the country, the Kwacha's performance has been great the past few months, the cost of living has still remained quite high. I think we've had several discussions regarding, the impact of the Kwacha on Zambia's cost of living, on commodities on the market, and of course, inflation also, its impact as well. Let us talk about the cost of living in the country, especially now that we're going into we're in an election period and going into an election. And of course, we hear now the president is also speaking about when Zambia gives the UPND government another term, they're going to focus on reducing the cost of living. Let's talk about how the cost of living, Mr. Tsanga, the cost of living reflects the state of a country's political economy.
Yeah, it's very true. I agree with you very well on what you have just mentioned. But the biggest factor here is that the cost of living is an economic indicator to a political variable in a way. But again, also we need to be aware of certain economic conditions that have actually been able to be prevailed in the previous past. And some of the aspects were even made by the same politicians that they're talking about. Then others were uncontrollable factors that we saw, like the drought, the COVID, many other, including even external shocks like the oil issues that we are facing in regards to Iraq, Ukraine, and Russia itself. So it's a combination of different factors that we can actually be able to see. And the current scenario of Zambia's cost of living is being felt through the cost of energy, which we have seen. We can see some other key variables like agriculture output, maize, soybeans, any other that we can actually be able to speak from that. We're able to see some of these things that are right on the table. And that's the reason why the large portion of inflation now taking us downward, it's the food inflation which has the largest weight on the consumer pricing index, which will now be able to enjoy even up to somewhere like August, also depending on how the post-harvest activities will be able to interplay from there. But by and large, what I should be able to mention here is that the cost of living has a number of key causing factors. One of the elements we can actually be able to speak is that we are not producing enough as a country. And that is the reason why we seem to have this situation, because we've got high rate of unemployment, we've got a number of things that we are exporting without processing them, we've got a lot of things that we also are making up in terms of missing some of the good opportunities that we should be able to have cultivated in a better position for us to actually move out from the current scenario.
Talking about exports, Mr. Tsanga, we also know that Zambia is very dependent on imports. In this crucial period, does the political atmosphere in the country also affect the exports and imports, whatever comes into the country and what goes out, and especially for those that are exporting raw materials? Does this also have an impact?
Yes, so as I mentioned, it also goes with how we tend to work out with our political sentiment around campaigns. As I mentioned, the key factor is that the investors may tend to have a wait-and-see caution because certain movements, certain pronunciation can actually lead them to start observing the whole scenario so that they should be able to look at the next move. It's a very politically sensitive period, which also aligned to the business landscape, because you see the bad part that sometimes we tend to have business that also are inclined to the ruling system where people only have money or have big contracts because they are working with the government of the day. So that is what also can get in the line of certain key important products, like, for example, if I may mention of oil. If we've got maybe one key tycoon who is interplaying into oil or interplaying into fertilizer and is heavily backed by some political elites, that also becomes a challenge, meaning it can disadvantage the whole entire system of supply chain. So that is what basically sometimes play out from that perspective. So it all depends with how certain things are aligned from that point. So in any way, the effect and perception toward the export